It is finally time, guys. I know I originally made this build quite a while ago, but you guys just kept commenting, so well, eventually I caved, and here we are. Good lesson for you guys. Peer pressure works. Actually, no, that's not true, but regardless, we are going to be talking about this beautiful steampunk airship that I originally put together in my video, 7 more quick tips for steampunk builds, which I'm sure many of you guys have seen because it's one of the most popular videos on my channel. And as I'm sure you can tell, this is going to be a very, very long YouTube video as we are going to be talking about this entire airship. I'm going to be breaking this tutorial down into several different parts, which I'll put on screen right now. I'll of course have timestamps for all of them in the description, and they'll also be in the little playback bar down at the bottom of the screen here, so of course if you want to come back to this video later, you can easily find what part you left off on. First things first, we can take a look at our materials list here. It's going to be a lot of materials, in particular deep slate, terracotta, dark oak, and copper. You're going to have a lot of those. Now, of course, I didn't build this in like the max efficiency way, so there's going to be a few quantities that are a little bit more or less than what you actually need. I'll put a link to a Google Doc that has the entire materials list in it as well, so you can see it there. Because as you can see, there's a lot of stuff here, and I don't think I could fit all of this on screen right now at one time. It would really be a whole lot. So that'll be helpful for you guys if you're trying to build this in your own Minecraft world. And with that out of the way, I think we're good to get started. So we're going to be starting off with the actual like balloon part of the airship. And as you know, that's primarily made out of white terracotta. And the first step in order to be doing that is to make kind of like a bunch of different rings of different sizes. For each different section, I'm going to have a diagram on screen for you guys so you can see exactly how I made the circle. So we're going to be starting with the middle of the airship here, and this is going to be the largest ring. As you can see, I've got a little bit of a measurement behind us. This is 23 blocks long, and I'll put a little diagram for you guys on screen right now so you can see exactly what blocks go where when making this circle. And then once you've created this 23 block diameter circle, you're actually going to bring it out and make a cylinder that's 27 blocks long. You can see I've started it right here. Let me just go and finish that up real quick. And that's the middle section of the airship, the largest ring completely taken care of. Next, we're going to be doing this side and this side, which are going to be the same size ring. We're basically just bringing everything in by 1 block. So yeah, it's a 21 block diameter circle, which really just means I brought everything in by 1 block on all sides. I'll put the diagram on screen once again. And you can see behind me where I've extended it both on the front. This side right here is going to become the front half of the airship, and this side over here is going to become the back half. They're both going to be extended out by 9 blocks in each direction. And once again, we have moved everything in by 1 more block. This is now a 19 block diameter, I think. I'll once again have the diagram on screen. And this is where things start to get a little bit different from front to back. Here on the front of the airship where we are right now, we're going to be extending this ring out by 7 blocks. But over on the back side back here, it's going to be extended by 9. And we'll get back to the back in a minute, but for the time being, I want to finish off the front section of the airship balloon right here. So of course, we're going to be once again bringing everything in by 1 block. Now this is 17 blocks diameter, and we are going to be extending that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. And here's where we're going to actually break from our pattern a little bit here. You can see we've got these little weird holes over in the sides here. This is because the nose of the airship balloon is going to start sloping inwards at like an increased rate, which means of course we got to go in and fill in the gaps here with a little bit more white terracotta. And then extend this ring by 2 more blocks to make it 3 blocks tall. Or I guess 3 blocks long is the right word for it. Once again, bringing everything in by 1 block. This one is 13 blocks wide, and you can see we don't have any weird gaps here. We're filling in all of the corners. There's no kind of weird stuff you gotta fill in with the white terracotta. And this one is also gonna be 3 blocks long. I'm sure you're starting to see just why we need so much white terracotta, huh? Bringing it in for 1 more layer. This time around we do have the gaps, and this one is 11 blocks in diameter. This one's actually very easy to remember. You can see on the 4 cardinal directions here, here, and here, there's 3 blocks, and then in the corners we have 2 and 2, right? So 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, so on and so forth. Of course, we got to do our little gap filling just like before, and this one is only going to be extended to 2 blocks, so you really only need to build 1 more block out like this. As we get closer and closer to the front of the airship, things are going to be shrinking faster and faster. That's how we create a cool little arc for the shape of the hot air balloon. Bringing it in one more time, I know I've said that a million times, I promise we're almost done with this. You can see I've got this weird little shape here, where instead of 3, 2, 2, it's now 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, and of course we need to fill in our gaps here. And this one is also 2 blocks long. Now we're gonna do the final layers of the nose of the balloon here, so just follow along with me because each one of these like cross sections here is only gonna be 1 block long. You're gonna start with these right here, then add this cool little star-shaped crown on the front of it, and last but definitely not least, 1 final block right on the front. And now you can see what I was talking about before. We've got a cool little arc shape for the front of our balloon. Okay, back to the back of the airship. This is where all those cool fins and stuff are eventually going to be sitting, but of course we need to have a layer of white terracotta underneath all of that. This one's going to be a different shape than the front. It's not going to like shrink down to a single point like up there. Shrinking things down here a little bit, we're bringing everything in by 1 block. I believe this is now 17 blocks in diameter. I had to double check on that one. And of course we have those weird little gaps like we were doing in the front, and extending it by 4 more blocks to create a 5 block long segment. Bring everything in 1 more block, this time not leaving any gaps at the intersection of the 2 different rings, and you're going to be extending that by 5 blocks as well. So we'll now have 2 5-block long segments that we just made. And then bring everything in by 1 block one more time. This ring here is going to have a diameter of 13 blocks. I forgot to mention that the previous one before this was 15 blocks, so it should be 17, 15, 13, and like the previous 2, it's also going to be extended to a length of 5 blocks. Alright, I know that was a crazy amount of rings and terracotta placing, and oh my god, my face is very up close, but thank you for sticking through that. I promise you we are almost done with this giant bulbous weird hot air balloon thing. We just have 4 more layers to go, and they're each going to be 1 block long on this final back end of the balloon. First layer is just going to be bringing everything in by 1 block. That should be an 11 block diameter right there. Second layer right here, we are down to a 9 block diameter, if my math is correct, which I really hope it is because I'm not double checking this stuff. Third layer is really just a 5x5 square with weird things poking out on all the sides there, like 1 block just like that. And our very last layer for the back of the airship balloon is just a 3x3 square like that. So congratulations, our entire airship balloon is fully formed, and that concludes part 1. Next step is part 2, which of course is going to be detailing this balloon and adding the fins. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take a bunch of bone blocks and do a tiny little bit of detailing to this thing before we add anything else. Basically what the goal is here is to add a little bit of texture variety to this balloon. There is going to be like metal chains and stuff holding the entire thing together, so you know the hot air balloon doesn't fly away or whatever. And because of that, I figured there'd be a little bit of extra friction and wear and tear between the metal chains. I think it makes the balloon look a little bit more worn out and weathered. Yep, that's a lot of bone blocks, but there we go. That's that's looking pretty good. So before we move on to the actual straps that I was just talking about, I would like to tackle the fins. We're going to be mixing it up a little bit and using a light gray terracotta. Wow, not white terracotta for once. Crazy, I know. And yeah, we're going to be doing the ones up on the cardinal directions first, and then going in and filling in the diagonals afterwards because those are a little bit weird. So right here is, I guess, the outline for one of the fins. We're going to be doing like decorations and stuff with deep slate and copper on it later, but I want you guys to take a look at the basic shape so you get an idea of where the blocks are actually going. So we're going to be starting from this section right here, these back 3 concentric rings, I guess you could say. Right after all this weird stuff, you go 1, 2, 3 sections in, right in the middle of the side here, or the top, or whatever your place you're starting on. 2 blocks in for the edge here, you're going to go 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, and then bringing it back over to the center of the balloon here, you're gonna do 2, with this one being an overlap from the previous section. So 2, 2, 2, 2, and then 1. And that makes the entire fin, so just go ahead and fill that in. And once that's filled in, you're going to take some deep slate tiles and some polished deep slate, and you're basically just going to be surrounding this entire fin with the deep slate tiles. We're going to be ignoring the corners for now. So you're going to get something like that. And then on each one of these corners, you just go ahead and throw in a polished deep slate to give it a little bit more bulk and weight. Now we're almost done with this fin design, but we just need to add a few more details. First things first, right on the corner here, this polished deep slate can go, put a tile here, and then stick out the polished by 1 block. I think that little bit of point on the end looks very cool. Add one more polished deep slate right there, so you're keeping the 2-block consistency. And then every single time that there's an exposed tile on the end, you're going to do a tile wall and then a polished wall, and then I guess also like that as well. So tile polished, etc, etc. You guys get the idea. And then you're going to take some wax copper slabs, and you're going to do one there, 2 on the end there, and then 2 more on these 2 right there. And then you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. And that is the wing pretty much taken care of. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to bring it over and mirror it on the right side here. And then of course you're going to flip it 90 degrees, put one on the top up here, and then one on the bottom of the airship as well. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention when you're doing these vertical ones, of course, you cannot use the copper slabs as they're just not going to go vertical. As much as I wish the slabs would go vertical, they're not. So we are going to be using trapdoors instead, just like that. Now, if you've ever built anything on a diagonal in Minecraft, you will know that it is quite difficult. And the same thing is going to apply to our diagonal wings here, but we're going to be doing our best to keep this same old wing shape that we've established for these 4 wings and just kind of translating it to a 45-degree slant. And here I think we've done a pretty good job of getting that down. You can see every time we move out towards the end of the wing, we're going up and also to the left by 1 block, right? Diagonals. So 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 4. Similar proportions to these, but of course they're going to be tweaked a little bit just because of how diagonals work. Then we have a 1 here, or rather 2, overlapping once again with this corner piece. 2, 2, and this one is actually 3. I know this is getting kind of confusing, but bear with me because this is going to be all incredibly worth it. Looking at the 8 fins on the back of this airship is so cool. So of course, go ahead and fill in the entire thing. And we're going to be adding our typical layer of deep slate tiles on the edges here, of course not filling in the corners because that's what the polished deep slate is going to do. Take your polished deep slate and add a block there on the end, and then of course there, 2 right on the edge of the tip just like that, and then coming around this way, there, basically just on all of these corner areas that were previously not filled in by anything. Really just like that. Oh, actually JK, not there. Of course, don't forget your walls, same spots as before on top of the deep slate tiles going in towards the center of the airship. And then this last one is a little bit weird though. We're gonna put one more white terracotta here to kind of round out this section a tiny bit more, and then put that last little bit of wall sticking out from that. I know that's a little bit of a weird design choice, but having one more little wall bit poking out there is really, really nice. You can see how this makes a really cool wing-like kind of serrated edge to the wing, and I think it looks really, really cool. And then of course, like with our horizontal wings that have the copper slabs, we're going to be putting copper slabs on these 3 in the front, that one in the middle, these 2 on the back edges, and then 2 more across this serrated bit right here. And of course, don't forget to add them to the bottom as well. And then of course, once you've got that, go ahead and mirror it with the other 3 diagonals. So this is looking pretty cool so far, but before we can call this top section of the airship complete, we need to add a couple more things. First of all, we don't have a way of actually connecting it to the ship yet, but on top of that, I think that a lot more detail work is needed to really sell the realism of this hot air balloon. For example, these fins, right? Like these fins are definitely made of some sort of hard material, and they kind of just merge into the balloon. And if you think about it, this balloon is made out of like a soft material, like leather or rubber or something like that. that, it doesn't make sense to be able to just kind of connect these two without some sort of reinforcement or something like that to just keep the entire thing put together. So that's what we're going to be working on to finish off part 2. So we're going to be using basalt, copper, the deep slate tiles and the wall version, and of course polished deep slate. What we want to do first is go between the fins here, and every time there's a change in elevation, we're going to do 3 regular polished basalt blocks, just like that. So 3 right there. Oop, that's not in the right direction. 3, 3, 3, and then you're going to be continuing that same idea all the way down here. Hopefully looking at this layout from the side will make a little bit more sense as to what I mean. You guys can see the pattern there. Next up, take any spot that's right between the basalt and this outer ring right here, and basically just put a copper block right there. Every single time there's an open spot, you guys can see what I'm doing. Just go alongside the entire ship here and just place copper, covering up every little bit of terracotta that you can see in this spot. This already does a whole lot to make the fins look more connected to the actual airship balloon, but we're still going to do a little bit more detail work. First of all, I like throwing in some walls here just to make the thing look extra secure. So much like the copper, you're just going to be throwing in walls right here around the entire ring. And then for the 2 fins on each side, so that one and that one, we're actually missing a couple blocks right here, so we can go in and throw in another tile and another polished, and then 2 more copper slabs just to make that look a little bit cooler and lines up stylistically with the rest of the fin. Of course, same thing over here. And now we're going to add a couple more of these kind of rings on the other parts of the airship. Once again, it's going to be where we have these bone blocks where we have 2 different size rings being conjoined together. And this time around though, instead of doing a fancy thing like that, we're going to be using deep slate tile walls, a whole bunch of them as a matter of fact, and really just run around the entire ring here, placing deep slate tile walls. We'll have to break a couple of them later on for adding in additional details, but for the time being, you can really just go nuts with the deep slate tile walls, make sure they're all connected to each other. Alright, that's looking pretty neat. But it would look nicer if there is a way to actually connect these different separated rings to each other, which is why I want to have chains running up and down the length of this airship balloon, connecting and tying together all these different rings. We're gonna have 8 different of these connector bits for each ring, right? So much like the fins, they're actually gonna connect up to the fins. Much like the fins, you're gonna have 1 for each of the cardinal directions and then 4 for the 4 different 45-degree angle diagonals. So what you're gonna do is say, let's start with the topmost one right here. We're gonna make sure we're right in the middle, lining up with that fin right there. Gonna do a copper block. Then on all 4 sides of the copper block, including on this one, just go up by 1 block. Gonna put deep slate tiles. Gonna put a polished deep slate wall here to make that a little bit less blocky. And then on each of these ends here where it's not connecting up to another wall, you're gonna put grindstones. The reason we're using grindstones is because they look a lot like pulleys and they fit very, very well with our overall aesthetic. In front of these grindstones, you're gonna put a lightning rod, but what I like to do, now this is kind of optional, but I think it looks better, is as you can see, I like turning the lightning rods around. I'm gonna go ahead and build up 1 more on the other side. And now we've kind of got these 2 little connector pieces pointing towards each other with their grindstones and their lightning rods. And now all you gotta do is connect up the space in between with chains. So this design works for the top, and of course you can just mirror it upside down for the bottom. And you can pretty much do the same thing on the sides. I've made pretty much the same exact design right here, just gonna throw on the lightning rods. So for this ring and this ring, go ahead and repeat that same connector design for all 4 cardinal directions. For this smaller ring that's a little bit closer to the fins, and for this other smaller ring that's a little bit closer to the nose of the airship, you're gonna mimic the same exact design. On the back side here, you'll notice that each one of these lightning rods points directly at one of the ends of the fins, and you can just slap a grindstone right on the edge there. This is basically what I was alluding to earlier when I was saying that everything was going to connect up. Each one of these different chains is going to eventually link up to one of the fins, and it's really, really cool. Back on the front side here, you can do 1 more round of building these little connector components. For the frontmost ring here, we're going to be doing something a little bit special for the very tip of the front of the balloon here. We'll get to that in just a minute though. For now, just go ahead and make 4 more of these. There won't actually be any room for chains, you'll just have to have the lightning rods touching tips here, but that's totally fine. However, you are going to want to leave these 2 spots blank. You're not going to put another grindstone and another lightning rod here. That's actually a mistake I just made. I was not following my own design, but now we're all good. And the reason for that is we're going to be switching over to using walls once again, and we're going to want to bring this all the way out to the front, making sure that all the walls themselves are connected. We don't want corner pieces like this where the walls are not technically connected. We want to bring that out all the way to the front, and of course bring it around back on the other side, connecting up to our corner piece like so. And don't forget the top and bottom. In the very front of your airship here, you can throw in 4 more walls in the corners, and then we're kind of just going to make a cool little like spike design kind of thing. We want to just make something that looks really cool on the front, you know, something menacing and intimidating and all that funky stuff. So there we go. Guess we'll throw in a couple more walls here just so we make sure the front of the airship is extra secure. Something like that, yeah. Alright, so this is looking pretty nice. However, we don't have anything connecting those 4 diagonal fins yet. So let's go ahead and change that. We're going to make a very similar design to this connector piece right here, just a little bit modified to work on a 45-degree angle here. Using all the same materials, we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like with these over here. I know it's going to be a little bit weird to get the positioning just right. You can see exactly where it is. Then of course go and put your copper in there, swap out that wall for a polished deep slate tile wall, and throw in your grindstones, lightning rods, and chains and everything else just like before. I will say though that the design does get a little bit finicky when you're talking about the smaller rings, so bear with me real quick. On the ring right here that's closest to the back fins, it is going to look like this. I didn't have space to put in a copper block, so we're just going to be replacing this tile that was right there, of course, with a polished tile, and then putting in the 4 deep slate tiles like so. Then on the other end, on the second ring away from the front of the airship, all you're going to need is a polished deep slate, 2 polished deep slate walls in a bent 90-degree angle pattern, just like that. 1 grindstone, 1 lightning rod, of course, and then we're not actually going to be continuing that chain pattern all the way through. It's a little bit too difficult to get it to snap all the way over to here. I tried messing around with that design in the past, it never really worked too well. So with all that knowledge I just gave you and all of those designs, you can go ahead and mimic that for all 4 of these 45-degree diagonals. Whew, I know that was a whole lot of building, but check it out. The top part of our airship, frankly the entire top half of our airship, is totally finished. It looks so sturdy and secure with all the chains and stuff running up and down it. Very industrial, very steampunky and gritty and all that, and it looks really great. I really love this design, and I'm so glad you guys like this design too. But anyways, that's enough gushing over my own work. Let's tackle the second half of this airship. Part 3 is going to be the design of the ship itself, but of course we need a way to actually connect this to the airship, and that's where the iron bar is come in handy. Starting from the very back of the ship, specifically this polished deep slate right here with the 2 trapdoors on the sides of it, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks down, go over by 1 in towards the center of the airship, and then go down another 1, 2, 3, 4, there we go, and 5. And there you have what's going to be one of our 6 very thin connector wires that's going to be securing this entire thing to our main ship. The next 4 are going to be connected to these 2 main rings here and here. Starting from the bottom diagonal piece, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, then in by 1, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I hope you like counting, folks. In by 1, and then down another 11, and then repeat that same collection of iron bars there on the other side, and of course another 2 on the other matching ring there and there. And we're going to do one last connecting wire starting from this specific spot right here. If you want to know the calculations, starting from this very front block right here, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 layers deep. On the 4th layer, that's the one that's going to line up with this bar here. And then we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Bring that over by 1 and bring it down 9 blocks. There, I saved you the counting. Hope you're happy. So yeah, now we got a bunch of little weird dangly wires going down from our balloon here, and this is where we're gonna start building our ship. We're going to be starting from the front here, and you can see I've put a little something together. At the bottom of this frontmost bit of iron bars, we've got a blackstone wall, chiseled polished blackstone, some polished blackstone stairs, a few stripped dark oak wood on the back, which is going to be facing towards the airship. Then we got a couple coppers here facing out towards the front of the airship. Then you're going to pick a side and go back by 2 more, breaking your temporary block. 2 more, so you should have 2, 4, 6. And then, I know this is going to be a lot, but bear with me. You're going to put 1 more wood over here, and then if you look way in the distance behind me, you can see there's another wood all the way down there at the other edge of the airship. Those 2 are going to connect, and if you want the exact measurement, including those 2 end pieces, that is going to be 73 stripped dark oak. So yes, I know that's a whole lot, but you can just go right ahead and start placing. And then if you thought you couldn't place any more wood, you're gonna go 2 blocks out right here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks back. So this spot right there, and then you're gonna bring this one also all the way out to the back of the airship. If you can hear my mouse clicking like crazy, it's because I'm clicking like crazy. But oh no, we're not even close to done with the wood placing yet. Just underneath this one, 1, 2, 3 blocks back, you're gonna take yet another row of stripped dark oak wood and bring that all the way back once again. And once more with feeling, going back, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blocks back from our last starting point. 2 blocks down, you're gonna do 1 more row of your dark oak wood all the way to the back. You can see how it looks right here. There is eventually gonna be a row of dark oak wood in the middle here where we're leaving this air gap, but that's gonna have a lot of holes in it due to like detail work and stuff, so we're gonna leave it completely blank for now, and we're just gonna get back to it later. Underneath this newly placed very long row of dark oak log, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks back with your dark oak planks, and then of course, like you'd expect, bring that all the way back as well. Then you're going to give yourself another 1 block gap underneath that, and then right there you're going to put an upside down deep slate tile stair. Make sure that the slanted part of the stair, this right here, is facing out away from the ship. We want this to be able to curve inwards because this is going to be the very beginnings of the bottom hull of the ship, which is going to roughly go like that. Anyways, you're going to take this tile stair and expand it in that direction down to the usual stopping point, but also in this direction all the way over here. And you'll notice that there's a whole lot of air above these stairs here, and well, you'd be correct. Not counting this gap right here, that's eventually going to have wood in it like I was telling you before. You're going to fill in this entire space with deep slate tiles, every single spot underneath here. Now I know I said earlier I was gonna avoid having to make you guys like break and replace blocks, but for this it's gonna be really difficult to get this part built without having you do a little bit of that. So I apologize, but to finish off this hull, we're first going to make the basic shape with the deep slate tiles, which are going to comprise the majority of the blocks, and then we're going to go back through and replace some of it with polished deep slate, mainly in the front here. The reasoning behind that, design-wise, is that I think polished deep slate looks a lot tougher and sturdier, so I wanted more of it to be in the front, where I'd imagine the ship would be taking a lot more damage, I guess. So starting from our stairs, you're going to take another row of your deep slate tiles and bring that back. Then you're going to take more stairs and bring that back as well. Then you're going to do 2 more rows of your deep slate tile stairs, each of which is going to be going in by a block, so you get that diagonal look like you can see right here. And of course, if your finger's not tired already, bring those all the way back. And at this point, we're going to be fully switching over to polished deep slate. As you can see, I've got 2 more rows of stairs right here going in, but also downwards, so they create that diagonal effect. And well, if your finger wasn't tired already, you're going to be bringing these all the way back too. Grab yourself some gray concrete, and on the inside here, remember we're making a hull, so it's slowly going to be sloping inwards and then eventually back up on the other end. But yeah, take your gray concrete and bring that all the way back. And then the last thing we're going to want to do for this side, well, pretty much the last thing, is take polished deep slate slab. Make sure it's a half a block down from the gray concrete. Remember, it's not going to be here. I'm going to bring it a half block down from that. And of course, bring it all the way back. So this is all pretty great, but of course, we've only made about half a hull thus far. So I want you to take everything you've constructed here, all the wood, all the deep slate, all that stuff, and mirror it on the other side. You're gonna have a 1 block gap in the middle here where there's no, what do you call it, polished deep slate. Just fill in a 3rd row of polished deep slate slabs in the very middle here. Alright, well, you should have something that looks something like this right now, kind of just a, I don't know, a big tube or something. But now we're gonna be talking about the front of the hull right here, and this part is gonna be a little bit tricky, but bear with me here. The first thing we're going to want to do is take some more copper, and starting from this section right here, just follow that same pattern of going 2 blocks down, 1 block over, 2 blocks down, 1 block over and over again. And you'll notice that it actually lines up with this outermost bit of wood right here, and of course do that on the other side as well. You'll see we have 3 sections here, 3 sections here, and 1 section in the middle. And I've also already put a polished deep slate and a deep slate tile in the middle here. What you're going to want to do is continue the tiles off in this direction like that, and then towards the very front of the airship over here, you're going to do the polished deep slate. Bring all of that down by 1 more layer, following the same exact pattern. And now this is where things get a little bit wonky, but we're gonna take this section by section, and by section, I mean these right here. So this is 1 section, this is 1 section, this is 1 section, etc. So starting from our first section, bring that down by 2 more blocks with tiles, do a set of stairs, 1 final deep slate tile on the right side closer to the back of the ship here, and then you're gonna do 3 polished deep slate, 2 stairs, put some temporary blocks there, and that's because we're going to add 2 more rows of stairs facing the same direction, bringing that inwards. 2 gray concretes there, and then 1 more row of your polished deep slate slabs right in the middle there. And of course, as you can see, I forgot to fill in this middle section. Don't forget to fill in this middle section if you haven't done so already. I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. And while we're here, these 2 stairs on this section, you're going to move those stairs up by a block, just like that. Then you're going to continue the polished deep slate over 2 more blocks. And this row of stairs right here, the very first row of stairs of these 3 here, going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to create the beginning of a cool little swoopy pattern of the polished deep slate as it slowly takes over the front of the hull, kind of going like that. These 2 sections right here we're actually going to skip for now, which I know is kind of weird, but that's because we're going to have a detail bit right about where I'm floating right here, and it wouldn't really make sense to build this entire thing and then scrap most of it later when we actually go ahead and put in the details, which is going to be the next part. So we're just going to leave that empty for now and move on to this one, the first section that is fully polished deep slate right behind me. And for that, we're going to do stairs, 3 rows of blocks like that, another row of stairs, and then 2.5 rows of blocks in the sense that we're going 2, and then 1 more that way, and 1 stair facing actually not the same way as the other is, but facing up in that direction because the hull is going to start curving upwards that way. For the next section over, do stairs, 3 blocks here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks here, and then underneath both of these, more stairs facing in the sideways direction. And then in the very front here, you can see we're down to only a 1 block thickness. We're right in the middle. So go ahead and do 2 blocks there and there, stair and stair. And now we got this cool little upward curving pattern that's going to connect up down there once we get our details in. Oh, and if you didn't do so before, go ahead and connect these 2, I guess, lines of copper with 2 more copper blocks right there, making what's kind of like a giant V. and then go ahead and mirror it on the other side. So that's actually all the hull we're going to be tackling right now. We're definitely going to be coming back here to do details like I've been saying, but for the time being we're going to shift our focus to the back of the airship because if you remember from the original build, there is a giant engine back there, which is really cool looking, and we're going to start laying that out right now. Alright, looking at the ship from the back here, we've got a flat, square, or I guess rectangular top right about here, and then of course it curves downwards for the hull. We're going to start by taking our polished deep slate, and starting right here, we're going to basically continue this pattern with the stair and the block. Then you're going to bring the polished deep slate all the way up to the top, bring that across to the other side, and down. One thing I should also mention is on the back of the ship here, instead of using the typical tile and polish pattern that we've been doing thus far, we're actually going to be doing polished and cobbled. So bringing this further down, we're going to have a cobbled full block and then polished stair. Using some temporary blocks, continue the stairs down, cobbled there. 3 more slabs of the polished variety, and then of course mirror that on the other side. And then with this done, we're going to be revisiting an old friend. Rings. Everybody's favorite, I know. We're going to be using the blocks you can see in my inventory: copper, copper stairs, copper slab, acacia trapdoor, red sandstone walls, and shroom lights. And we're going to be making 3 rings of different sizes. Here are the 3 different rings. I know these are pretty complicated designs, so I would say just pause the video if you want to copy them down. I'm going to have all of them in sequence on screen here, going to give them a good long amount of screen time so you can really see all the little details and whatnot. We're just using the block palette I was showing you guys before, but of course the patterns and stuff can get pretty intricate. And here's how they are actually arranged on the airship. You can see how the first one here lines up with the back of our ship. We've got 1 specific copper poking in right here, 1 block separated from the top of the deep slate here, and then every sequential ring after this goes 3 blocks out and 1 block up. You can see how this is 1 block higher than that, and this is 1 block higher than that, as well as being 1, 2, 3 blocks out. And yeah, that's how the rings are put together. Then as for what goes between the rings, you can see kind of what I've been laying out right here. We're gonna have, well, more rings, this time just using a random texturing of polished deep slate and cobbled deep slate. The important thing here is that we don't have any gaps between the inner section and the ring that comes before it. So you can see there are gaps here, and you know, that kind of sucks and all, but more importantly, there aren't any gaps here on the smaller ring. It's really just meant to fill in the gaps. It doesn't have to be any specific shape or size, as long as it looks the way that you like it. My suggestion is just to experiment with stairs and full blocks until you find a pattern that you like. You should now have something that looks kind of like this, and I gotta say it looks pretty dope from back here. So on the real airship, the rings kind of stop here, and then we have these long kind of shafts that poke out and encase the flame of the engine, right? And specifically in order to build that, I'm gonna start with these 4 blocks here that are poking in by 1, these copper blocks here. You're gonna take your polished deep slate and your cobbled deep slate like before, and bring it out by 11 blocks each. Once you've got that in place, go ahead and add stairs on the top and the bottom, so up here and down here. I'd also recommend taking the time to kind of flesh out the insides of these rings, because you will be looking at them a little bit on the inside. Don't want them to be all blocky and stuff back here, so I'd say just take a few minutes to round out those rings a little bit. That's looking a lot better. And I know I didn't give a specific block by block tutorial for this, but it's really hard to kind of explain how to make this kind of inverted half dome shape. So I would say just take the existing block palette and do whatever feels right. I'm sorry for giving a very vague explanation, but this video is already going to be incredibly long, and if I did everything block by block, we would be here for many hours, so I apologize for that. Worst case scenario, if you're really lost, there is always the Lighbatica schematic and the world download you are more than welcome to check out, linked in the description of course. But moving on, we have one final ring to take care of, and that's this last ring all the way at the back end of the airship. This one's going to actually be made out of blackstone, and if you want, you could even sprinkle in more blackstone into the back of this build in general. This is where the main flame of the engine is going to be. It's going to be really hot, it's going to be really fiery, so if you want to use an even darker block than deep slate to show how charred and burned it is, then blackstone is a good bet. And here is your ring design. I'm going to just freeze right here for a minute so you guys can see exactly how that is looking. I'll probably throw an image on screen as well of this entire thing without all the crap behind it, just so you can get a better better idea of how it's actually constructed here. Maybe a little, white and black color scheme and stuff to really show each individual block. But yeah, that is the entire back engine of the ship. Of course, it's missing all of the details. We'll be coming back to that in part 4, which is actually going to be coming up pretty soon because the very last thing we need to do is fill in a main top deck here. So why don't you go ahead and grab some dark oak planks, and then basically from the very front of the airship, one block underneath this inner section of the stripped dark oak wood, you're just going to fill in that entire thing with dark oak planks all the way to the back. I know that's a whole lot of wood planks, but we're just building on a massive scale in this build, so you are going to need a large amount of materials. That's just how it goes. And with that, well, congratulations, you survived another part of this incredibly long build tutorial. We are getting pretty close. All we need to do is, well, unfortunately, all of the details on this bottom airship, which is going to take a while, but this is the fun stuff because this is where we really bring in the steampunk vibes, We've really just been laying out a basic shape and basic textures thus far, and now is where we're really gonna get creative with our little steampunk decorative abilities and make something really, really cool. So buckle up because we are finishing off part 3, crossing that off our list, and going into part 4, details. Right, so for the detail work, there are some things that are going to be symmetrical from each different side, so we can do one side and then mirror them. And then some things like the funky looking gears on top are actually not symmetrical, which means that we're going to have to take those one at a time. But for now, let's do everything that we can do that's symmetrical and just mirror all that, and then we'll get to the asymmetrical stuff a little bit later. First up, I want to extend this copper line down the length of the airship. We originally had 2 copper blocks here, but we're actually going to be removing that one. And then starting from this one that's poking out right here, we're going to do slab, stair facing inwards, and then another stair facing outwards and backwards like that. This you're going to see pretty often, so you'll see this pattern repeat quite a bit. Full block, one more of that stair pattern. Then we're going to be busting out the lightning rods, going 3 blocks over. I do like to rearrange a couple of them just to mix up the patterns a little bit. Sometimes you want these heads in different directions. Something like that is going to be good. Do 2 more sets of stairs and then 3 more lightning rods going in this way. 3 more lightning rods. 1 more of those funky stair patterns just like that. And then we're going to do full block, stairs, full block, stairs, full block. This copper block right here should be in line with that 1 row of the dark oak planks that we put down earlier. And then we're going to be whipping out the black stone and making this pattern right here. So one of the same stair formations with the polished black stone. Gonna have a chiseled black stone in the middle here, 2 slabs, 2 walls, so we can go ahead and slap another iron bar there and there. Then we're gonna want a repeating pattern of 2 lightning rods and then 2 copper slabs. I like turning these around so their heads are facing into the slabs, but that's really up to you, of course. It takes a little bit of extra time. Then you're gonna repeat that 3 more times. I think this design is really, really cool for making something look secured and fastened together, especially when you've got 2 different clashing textures in the middle here. It really, really looks like it helps the entire thing become more sturdy, And of course, it's copper, so steampunk vibes. Then instead of our 3rd bit of copper slabs here, we're going to be using black stone again. We got a similar pattern to what we had earlier, but it is a little bit different. 2 chiseled polished black stone, and then of course 2 sets of the double slab, stairs down here, and a wall on top. Then we're gonna do 1 more section of this copper stuff in the same length over on the other side. We're going to do a 3rd design for that little blackstone piece here. These I feel like are more, sturdy fasteners that go between these long strands of copper stuff, And the reason this one's a little bit shorter, you'll see I've removed what would have been the 2nd chiseled bit here. I've put the wall 1 block down, is because there's going to be a large gear roughly right about here, and I don't want that to be touching anything because, well, that wouldn't make sense. Gonna do 1 more copper section over here. Finally, 1 more of these black stone things. This one is actually the same design as the 2nd one we put together with the 2 chiseled polished black stone right over there. So you can go ahead and just copy that. 1 final section of copper here. This time we're only doing 2 sets of slabs and 2 sets of lightning rods because we do not have space to fill in a 3rd one over there. And then finally, once you got that all done, 2 more slabs and 2 more chiseled polished black stone just to go ahead and connect that to the first ring on our engine bit back here. And there you go, we've got a little bit of detail running down the entire length of the airship now. And then in the two spots you can see right here where we had that large bit of that black stone fastener type thing right there with the two chiseled polished black stone, we're doing a little copper design underneath it. You can see here in this big wide shot right here where exactly they are positioned in relation to the airship itself. And this is what the design looks like. Not only are we breaking up the monotony of this hull, but we're adding things to make it look just a little bit more secure. As you can probably tell by now, that's the goal with a lot of these details, just make this airship look more sturdy. Hopping on back to the front of the airship, you can see underneath where I've got these two stairs right here in between these 2x3s of lightning rods, we're going to be making a cool little viewport window in the bottom of this hull here. And that's going to be starting with one slab right underneath that stair. And then you can see we got a row of trapdoors and then 5 more trapdoors on the bottom. We're gonna have a stair right there, then another set of 2 trapdoors, actually one right there and one right there. You can see how the 2 trapdoors kind of form like a vertical slab in this instance. We're gonna be busting out that deep slate tile stair and throwing in another trapdoor right there, one more stair. Then you're gonna take this top bit and mirror it on the bottom down here. And then of course, take this side piece and mirror it over here. Then once that is all taken care of, bust out these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks, these 5 at the top right here, that one, and the bottom 3. We are going to be filling this with some glass. First step you want to do is put tile stairs there, and using a temporary block there. That's going to kind of round out this whole thing a little bit, you know? And of course, same thing on the other side. Take a couple full blocks and put them there and there. A row of tile slabs across the top, just like that. 3 more on the bottom. Another row of slabs in the front, just like that. And then every open spot back here where there's an air gap, you can just go ahead and fill with tinted glass. There isn't actually an interior for this build, but if you wanted to build an interior, you'd have a cool little window here. In my design, I kind of just filled this back area with black concrete, admittedly just to kind of block it out because mine does not have an interior. I'm just going to be leaving it like this for the time being. Put one more trapdoor there, and you're all set and finished with that beautiful looking window. I love how it's like ever so slightly oval shaped despite still being pretty square, you know, limitations of Minecraft and everything. And it's nice to have a window into the inside of the airship. It's not just one monolithic slab with no way through, you know? And I suppose while we're talking about windows, we might as well talk about this weird little gap in our hull that I've been ignoring up until this point. The reason I've been ignoring it is because the majority of it is actually going to be all detail work. We're going to be putting in some custom windows in here. For these, you'll need dark oak fence gates, dark oak trapdoors, dark oak planks, spruce trapdoors, spruce slabs, campfires, and something to extinguish the campfires with. And here is the cool little window design that we're going to be making with those materials. I think this looks really wonderful, and it definitely fits the steampunk vibes. So what you're gonna do is basically every single spot where there is one of these copper bits underneath, about where my head is, where that spruce slab is, they're actually lined up, and you could fit another one over here too. So we're gonna do 2 windows here, only 1 window here centered on this left one right there. Unfortunately, we can only fit in one because we're gonna have a massive gear right in the middle of the airship. That's right about right in the center of the ship right there. So those 2 spaces are going to be taken up by a gear. Then we're going to be able to fit 2 windows here and 2 windows here. So just go right ahead and get that taken care of. Ah, yeah, forgot to mention earlier, but for the back 2 windows, in order to get them to fit into this reduced space, you're not going to be able to have the spruce slab in the middle. You're just going to have the 2 campfires side by side like that, and the windows are going to be slightly less wide. Once again, if you're using this as a base, you know, with an interior and stuff, this is a great way to be able to look outwards. I've just been filling the behind area with black concrete because, well, I don't have an interior, and every spot that's not a window can be filled in with a little bit more of that stripped dark oak, completing this section of the wall. Or I guess rather the hull, not the wall. Next up, every time where we added these reinforced copper bits at the bottom of the airship, we're going to be doing a similar thing up here. You can see it's made with a lightning rod, a red sandstone wall, and then a whole bunch of copper looping over and going into the top deck here. This one is made out of copper, and I decided to make the other one out of primarily black stone, just for a little bit more color variety. And now we're actually going to be breaking with our existing color palette, kind of, and using quartz and iron blocks, believe it or not. I think it would be very cool if we had like some pressurized containers, maybe full of oxygen or fuel or something at the bottom of the airship, bulging out from on the sides of the hull. Of course, they're reinforced and stuff, so they won't like get punctured and whatever, but we're gonna have one right here and one towards the front of the airship. So yeah, this is how wide it's gonna be. It's going to be 13 blocks long, and it's going to be centered between these two things that we were just talking about. So the center block actually lines up with that black stone fastener in the middle. Then on top of all the iron, you can go ahead and throw a row of quartz stairs. Then at the bottom, do the same thing, of course. One more row of iron underneath. One final bit of stairs. Ooh, those are the wrong way. Make sure they're facing upside down. You want the upside down stairs. And there you go, now you got some sort of pressurized canister. Now we're going to be doing the other one up in the front here, and this is why I was leaving this big gap in the hull up until this point. First of all, we can go ahead and do 2 more polished deep slate stairs right there, 3 more slabs, and finally 2 more regular polished deep slate just to give that hull a bottom. We're going to have the tanker right there and then fill in the rest of the hull up there. So I've got the iron blocks added in now. You can see we got a 3x3 right there, which is going to be flush with this polished deep slate right there. Another 3x3 in this section. It's really just all 3x3s, to be honest. Another 3x3 at the bottom here. It's a little bit obscured by these 2 stairs, but you can see how that becomes a 3x3. Then we would have a 3x3 at the top, but the only block that is going to be visible is this one in the corner. Then we're going to be bringing this little bit of the hull down, so 2 deep slate tiles, 2 polished deep slate, and then of course, where there's the full block, you use the slab variety, or sorry, the stair variety, just like that. Don't forget to fill in your funny little gaps, of course. Ooh, that's gonna be a difficult one to get to. Well, we're gonna have to fill in our funny little gaps somehow. There we go. There, oh no, not that. There we go. All right, funny little gaps have been filled in. And I guess while we're here at the front of the hull, we can finish off this section as well. Take a copper slab and put it on this part of every of these 1x2 copper blocks, just like that. And then go ahead and wherever the copper goes in by 1, you've got this face here, go ahead and stick a copper lightning rod. You will unfortunately have to turn all of these around. So in hindsight, it actually didn't make any sense for me to place them there, but oh well. For the purposes of education, there we go. When they face this direction, they look a little bit less dumb, a little bit more intimidating, I guess. On the very front here, we can take a copper stair, put it there, slab, 2 slabs, another slab, and then a lightning rod all the way out on the front, just like that, and then maybe 1 more slab right there. That's looking pretty nice, like almost like a bayonet on an old school rifle, you know? Very spiky. Looking at the top here, we're gonna want some cool little decorations on the top of this hull, you know? So I'm thinking we take an anvil, put it there, deep slate brick slab there, cobble deep slate slab, and then another deep slate brick slab, and then we're going to be repeating that pattern all the way down the length of the ship. In the front section, in this V right here, we're going to do a similar kind of deal with copper, cobble deep slate, then put a wood down and an anvil on top, and then last but not least up here, a deep slate brick slab. And now you got this wah 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 pattern going on here. Tile that all the way to the front. And of course, let's not forget about lighting. This is going to cover some of it. We're going to be adding a little bit of lighting later, but for the time being, why don't you take yourself a lantern and then every other anvil, just plop a lantern on top of it. Over at this large canister down here, you can take this iron block and just bring back a bunch of lightning rods. This is going to look like a little pipe, piping in fuel, or maybe fuel out of this thing into the rest of the ship. It's a really nice little detail that you definitely don't need to add, but I think it's very, very cool and just adds a tiny little bit of polish, you know? Of course, if you want them to really look nice, you'll have to flip around half your lightning rods. I don't blame you for not wanting to do that if you're playing in survival, but since I'm here in creative mode, I might as well, I suppose. We can do the same thing on the other side as well. Alright, that was a whole ton of detail work. We're gonna get to the funky gears and the cool little engine details and stuff in a minute, but all of this that we just put together, the copper little like fasteners and stuff, the windows finishing up the hull, the big window, the stuff on top there, that can all be mirrored. So yes, it is time to go through the arduous task of doing all of that again. But you know what? Thus is the price for large scale builds in Minecraft. You have to be ready to just sit down and grind. Yep, we got both sides of this airship all kitted out with details right now. Before we get into the funky gears and everything, that's going to be pretty complicated, so I want to save that for the end. I want to tackle this back engine bit first. Most of this is not symmetrical, there's only one of it, so we can't really do much mirroring, but there is something we can get right out of the way with regards to mirroring, and that's going to be some additional copper supports for this part of the engine. I know I just threw all of that together, but let me explain it real quick. We've got two different designs here, one for the cardinal directions which go on top of these deep slate shafts, and some diagonal ones which are a little bit beefier and kind of just float there. So for both of these, you're going to have 4 lightning rods in a row on either side, so 4 there, 4 there, 4 there, 4 there. These connect up right into the middle between these two trapdoors. These two connect up right at the corner where you've got block, stair, block. That's where you put these 2 sets of lightning rods. Then in the middle here, for the cardinal direction ones, it's just a plus of copper and a black stone button in the middle for a little bit of color and texture variety. On the diagonal ones, things get a little bit more complicated, but as you can see, we've got copper, 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 and then we've got block, stair, some shroom light encased completely in trapdoors, stair, block, and then I guess you've got a couple other blocks under there for support. But yeah, that's how those diagonal ones look. I'll give you guys a second right there to get that down. Then as they reach the very end of the ship, they kind of curve around and inward, kind of like claws holding the entire thing together. So for the cardinal direction ones, right at the end of this deep slate shaft, you've got 2 more acacia trapdoors, some copper like this, and a wall to kind of look like a hinge of some kind. The diagonal ones are similar where you got 2 copper. This is kind of looking like a diagonal claw going in that direction. And the nice thing is that you can just repeat this same design all the way around here, like with our wings and other things in this airship. We're gonna have 8 in total. That's looking pretty nice. But unfortunately, as of right now, this engine is off. There is no fire or flame or magical fuel energy or whatever powering this thing, and it could definitely use that. So here's the thing about fire, right? It doesn't really have a defined shape, and it's very hard to do that kind of thing in Minecraft. I know I've been avoiding giving you guys like very vague directions for how to build stuff, but I'm gonna have to kind of make an exception here because it's just really hard to describe the right kind of shape, and frankly, it totally depends on what you want out of the build. If the ship is supposed to be stationary, maybe you don't want any fire at all, or maybe just a little glow coming out of the engine. Or maybe if the ship is traveling at full speed, you want a roaring, blazing fire coming out of the back. I've always been imagining this ship as something very rustic, so I was thinking it'd be powered by coal or like, I don't know, Tesla coils or something very steampunky. But let me show you what I've got for the initial design here. I've got this, which, as you can see, is kind of just a giant cone of shroom lights, and that's fair, it is a giant cone of shroom lights. But here you can see that it's kind of hard to really make a good fire shape in Minecraft. You know, some people are very good at it, but I'm not one of those people. And yeah, I'm going to be putting a bunch of glass and glass panes around this to hopefully make it look a little bit more blurry and amorphous and fire-like and stuff, but this is the core of it. This is the main shape that everything else is going to go around. And if you want to see what it's going to look like with all the fiery glass and stuff adding to the effect, well, there you go. Easy as that. I think the most important takeaway here is that closer to the bottom of the fire, or I guess, you know, further back in the engine there, I'm using mainly yellow and orange, and then it's kind of tapering off to red as we get over to the tip. This is kind of how fire works in real life, where, you know, white and blue are the hottest fires, and red is actually the coldest kind of fire. Electromagnetic radiation and infrared and whatnot. I don't know, fancy science stuff. But regardless, you got this yellow and this orange, and it gradually fades to be a little bit more red as we get to the back over here. And yeah, I think that would be cool to add into your build if you want to, you know, build a fire of some kind, but regardless, it is up to you. And now for the bit that I'm sure all of you guys have been waiting for. Gears. I know it's been a long time coming and this video has been phenomenally long, but we are going to finish off part 4 with a bunch of really cool steampunky gears, so make sure to stick around for that. I think because each gear is so different and they're in all these very random asymmetric places, the best way to do this is to just take things one gear at a time, where I'll build a gear and then I'll show you exactly how it was made. Most important thing you got to know before we start though is basically every single gear is going to be built in this little crack right here. That way we can shove all the gears in between here, and it creates a really cool little steampunky effect with all the gears popping out at different heights and stuff. So without further ado, let's get gear in. We're going to be starting with the front left corner of the ship right there, working our way back, switching over to the right, and then working our way back up to the front. Should probably mention right now that the majority of the gears are going to be made out of blackstone, copper, acacia wood, and red sandstone, so be sure to have a lot of those materials on hand if you're going to be replicating this in survival. And by the way, if any one of you guys is building this in survival, please leave me a comment. You are insane. I will personally shout you out. I will name my firstborn child after you. I don't know what I'm going to do, but you need some serious recognition for being cracked as all heck to be building this in survival. Like, oh my god. Anyways, that's our first gear. You can see it right here. I'm not leaving any space between this and the first, what do you call it? Deep slate brick slab that's making its way inwards towards the front there. There's gear number 2, built entirely out of copper. This is actually a gear design I really like, and we're going to be using this same shape, albeit probably with different materials, in a few different places. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and put it on screen right now so you guys can get real nice and familiar with that design, because you will see it quite a few times. Gear number 3 is a little guy with the axle just one block over from the final row of this big gear here. We're busting out the acacia. This is a stripped acacia log, and some of the blackstone that I was talking about earlier. Gears 4 and 5 are right here. It's going to be lining up with this iron bar, and we got a bit of an axle with that little bit of blackstone in the middle. Got the 4 pieces of smooth red sandstone, and the rest is entirely made out of copper. Gear 5 is behind it. It's a little bit smaller and a little bit more inset. You can see there, just 5 blocks right there. Gear number 6 is another little guy separated by 2 blocks from the previous gear, and it's going to have another axle here, which is going to go into gear number 7. And there's gear number 7, a big blackstone gear. You can see the axle continuing into there, and you know, it's just sitting pretty inside the little crack here. Got a side shot for you. Now we're going to be breaking our rule a tiny bit here for gear number 8, because gear number 8 not only is massive, I'm going to be putting more copies of this gear in other parts of the ship, and they're all going to be connected. It's going to be really, really cool when it's done, so let me just finish up this time lapse real quick. And there we are. Doesn't that look sick? I love the way these gears look. They're definitely the center point of at least the hull part of this build. They're so cool looking. Give you guys a better view of it from the side here. I know this design is very, very elaborate, but of course feel free to pause the video and just get everything you need to know screenshotted or written down right here. And then of course the same design is duplicated 3 times. We have a little bit more of the central gear visible. I actually didn't cover this up yet. Of course, like I've been saying, if you have an interior, maybe you can make this like a servant's entrance down into the bottom where, you know, people can go and work on the machinery and stuff that powers the ship. But for now, I'm just sealing it up with black concrete because, I don't know, I'm uncreative or something. That was all gear number 8. Let's keep moving. Gear number 9 is another one of these tiny guys looking absolutely minuscule compared to these 3 giant gears. Acacia and copper, not blackstone like before, just using a blackstone button. Gear number 10 is actually 2. We've got the outer one right here with that very familiar design I showed you before in blackstone now. You can see how it lines up with this iron bar right here. There's another side to it, which is a little bit more solid. And yeah, they're the same height, same dimensions and everything, just got 2 now. Gears 11 and 12, both tiny little guys. These 2 are going to be touching, and then you can see how these 2 relate to each other. Gear number 13, back in this little groove here, made out of sandstone and copper. Gear number 14 is that familiar design from before, of course partially submerged inside the groove here, and all made out of copper. And now we're on to the right side here, which is very convenient because I just lost count of what gear we were on, so let's call these 1, 2, and 3. They're all really tiny little guys, just lining up here with the polished deep slate on the back of the ship. 1, 2, and 3. You can see how they all interlock with each other. They're all actually extended into the groove a little bit. We got these acacia logs acting as axles, and this one is on top, so it extends a little bit further. We got another pair gear over here. Gear number 4 is centered around this back one of these 2, support thingies, the other one being up there. It's got a little bit of everything, you know, some red sandstone, some copper, some acacia. It looks pretty good. I really like the texturing on this one. Gear number 5 and 6, we got a small blackstone guy. You can see where it is in relation to the others. And number 6 is a little bit of a bigger guy. This one is entirely blackstone and sitting in the groove. There you go. Because we already took care of these 3 huge ones, we're going to be skipping that, and gear number 7 is actually all the way over here. There is the last one we put together all the way back there. We've got a 0 block separation between the edge of the huge gear going towards the front and gear number 7 here. Of course, they're not actually touching or anything because this one is outside the groove. It's also got 4 little lightning rods in the middle, which I thought was a very cool little touch. Gear number 8 on the right is a tiny little guy sitting in the groove right there, looking very cute. And finally, there's gear number 9 on the right. You can see it's entirely made out of blackstone. It's once again that familiar pattern that we saw all the way back here with gear number 2 on the left. I know these guys don't actually have like axles in the middle, so they're a little bit unrealistic, but frankly, it's steampunk. Nothing in this subgenre is ever realistic ever. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start making dope steampunk builds. Anyways, all that aside, that is every single one of the gears on this wonderful airship, and it is so close to being finished. I can taste the finished ship. It's so close, I can feel it. But we're not done yet. Oh my god, my face. We're not done yet. As you can see, I'm losing a little bit of sanity recording this thing. Like, seriously, this has taken so long to record, so please, if you're enjoying it, if you reached this far in the video, please just like the video, man. Like, I've spent so long recording this and editing this. Oh my god, I've been slowly going insane making this tutorial. Please. But we're so close. Look at us. We're really close to finishing. All the gears are in place. It's looking phenomenal. We just have some tiny little final finishing touches and bits of polish that we're going to be doing in part 5. So yeah, we're finished with the gears. Let's get into our final part and finally finish off this airship in part 5. Okay, I've taken a moment to calm down, and here we are. So part 5 is really just going to be running around the airship, fixing up any little things that I neglected to add in the previous 4 parts, such as this funny little connector piece that connects the backmost iron bar wire to the actual ship. We're also just going to throw in a couple campfires here for a little bit of smoke, because, you know, this is where the ship actually meets the engine, so I figured it would be kind of realistic if there is some smoke coming out of it, because, you know, it's probably really hot and stuff. Doesn't matter very much. Just something to make that look a little bit extra sturdy and secure. I think that is pretty good. If you don't want to have these weird gaps between all the gears, 1 block below all the stripped dark oak wood, I actually have been adding in a little bit of deep slate, so you can just put it sideways like that, and I think that looks pretty good. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Another thing I like doing if you just want a little bit more motion in your ship is adding in a whole bunch of campfires, especially around the large gears. You can shove them in this groove here too. This is quite a bit of smoke. I might not do this much smoke. Maybe this ship is like burning or taking damage or something. I'm not sure why it's smoking this much, but you can put a whole bunch of campfires down. The smoke will go through 1 block like that, which is really nice because you can completely conceal the campfires. If you want to, I like having a little pipe connecting these 2 different fuel canisters. Of course, I'm just using a temporary block so I can put down the acacia trapdoors. I'm sure you've seen this before. Plenty of YouTubers on the platform like doing this with acacia trapdoors, so I'm sure this is nothing original. But it looks really good. It's a tried and true design, so definitely recommend. Another thing I like doing is hanging some lights down from the bottom of the ship. This hole, I mean, admittedly it looks like a hole, but it's still a little bit boring, so we're going to be doing our final details down there. One thing you can do is throw some chains down from the bottom. I've got these iron bars here, which are pretty handy at doing that. So really anytime there is an iron bar, I like putting a chain of some amount of length. It really is up to you. I like making some shorter and some longer. As long as it's not like comically long, it should be all good. And speaking of making the hull a little bit less boring, this kind of prevents the ship from being able to like actually sit down on the ground, as I guess the pipe does as well. So if you were planning on keeping this ship like actually able to sit on the ground, then maybe you don't add these, but I think they look really cool. I'm adding some pulleys. You know, I'm imagining like cargo or freight or even people could be hanging from the bottom of this on some tight ropes and, you know, chains and stuff. So I've got some blackstone or polished blackstone poking down, and then a stair, then a grindstone, and I'm gonna have chains running between all these different nodes to create a cool little web of pulleys. Yeah, with all these pulleys on, I think the bottom definitely looks a lot more detailed and somewhat on par with the rest of the build, so yeah, would recommend adding that if that's something you're interested in doing. And with that, guys, we are finished. Oh my god. This has been one of the craziest videos I've ever had to make ever on this channel, and if you have followed this through to completion in any form at all, whether you're just watching, building in creative, or, oh my god, building in survival, you are a serious homie, and I appreciate you so much. This is gonna be easily the longest video that's ever been put out on my channel, and it's taken me an incredibly long time to put together. So if you appreciated the video, of course, a like on it would be much appreciated. And if you're not subscribed, well, you better do that now for the hour of content you've just watched. Just saying. Alright guys, once again, links are in the description to this fantastic build, and I am just so happy to have this finally completed, the tutorial out for you guys. Hopefully you'll stop bugging me about it now. I received a lot of comments about it, seriously. Until next time guys, this has been Leon, and I will see you all in the next Minecraft build tutorial video. Take care, my friends. Love you a whole lot.